top NFL stars are now being linked to a billion-dollar deal to launch a rival league, and it's sending shockwaves through the sport. This isn't coming out of nowhere either. Frustration over money and power inside the NFL has been building for years. And now it's starting to look like something bigger could be happening. Something has been building in the NFL for a while now. It starts with money, the kind of money that makes headlines by itself. The NFL's landmark $113 billion media rights deal with Amazon Prime Video, ESPN, Fox, CBS, and NBC runs through 2033 and has fundamentally reshaped the league's financial ceiling. The 2026 salary cap stands at $255.4 million per team, up from $182.5 million in 2021. A 40% increase in just 5 years. Franchise values are soaring. The Dallas Cowboys generate over $1.2 billion in annual revenue, more than any other NFL franchise. The Chicago Bears now sit at $8.2 billion in value, up 28% from the prior year. The league is swimming in cash. Record-breaking TV contracts, international expansion, stadium construction booms, and yet the players, the people who take the hits, tear the ligaments, and generate the product that fills those stadiums, continue to receive the same basic share. Under the current CBA, players receive a minimum of 48% of all revenues every year. That sounds reasonable until you put it in context. An economic model that was once a 50-50 revenue split is now between 52 and 53% for owners, and 47 to 48% for players, with those percentage points amounting to billions of dollars over the length of these collective bargaining agreements. The 47 to 48% for players does not even include revenue sources such as premium seating, stadium naming rights, most gambling revenue, and real estate appreciation. That gap has not gone unnoticed. Former NFL linebacker Shawne Merriman recently appeared on the Pat McAfee Show and sparked a conversation about whether the current CBA adequately reflects the value players bring to the multi-billion-dollar NFL empire. Merriman articulated a growing sentiment amongst current and former players that the revenue split overwhelmingly favors ownership, and his argument has a straightforward logic. The value creating the product, the players themselves, should be proportionally rewarded when the league's financial resources are dramatically increasing. This isn't the first time frustrations like this have surfaced, but what's different now is the scale. When the NFL was a $9 billion a year enterprise, a 2 or 3% difference in the revenue split translated into a large number. When the NFL is approaching $20 billion a year in total revenue, a 2 or 3% difference translates into something that can't be dismissed with a shrug. The NFLPA's annual team report cards for 2026 painted a stark picture of player sentiment across the league. The report, based on anonymous player surveys, grades teams on key categories: coaching facilities, ownership, and player treatment, revealing which organizations are thriving and fostering a positive player experience, and which are falling short. The Pittsburgh Steelers landed at the bottom of the rankings, and the broader results highlighted tensions between the NFL and the players' union over transparency and workplace conditions. It is in this environment, record revenue, lopsided splits, and simmering player dissatisfaction, that the idea of a rival league starts to take shape. And it's not just talk. It's the kind of talk that people start attaching dollar figures to. Before we examine what this potential new venture looks like, we need to understand why this specific idea should terrify anyone thinking about investing in it. The original USFL was founded in 1982 and played 3 seasons from 1983 to 1985. It had genuinely brilliant aspects. The league drew top-tier talent, signing 3 consecutive Heisman Trophy winners, future Hall of Famers Reggie White, Jim Kelly, Gary Zimmerman, and Steve Young. All started their professional careers in the USFL. It had ownership with real money behind it. David Dixon conceived the whole thing. Donald Trump owned the New Jersey Generals. The league attracted fans, with its first year drawing 2.7 million fans across 12 teams. In its opening season, teams averaged 25,031 fans per game, led by the Denver Gold, who drew over 40,000 per home contest. It lost $163 million in 3 seasons, and is still considered the strongest rival league to the NFL since the old AFL. The culprit was not a lack of talent or fan interest. It was ego, impatience, and a fatal pivot. After another season of big losses by many of the teams, Trump and Einhorn convinced the other USFL owners that moving to a fall schedule to directly compete with the NFL would lead to a merger. That decision destroyed the league. The USFL had no hard salary cap, and some teams escalated player payrolls to unsustainable levels. Despite pledges to keep costs under control, the league eventually sued the NFL for violating antitrust laws, claiming the NFL had a monopoly on TV broadcasting rights. They technically won the case, but the jury awarded damages of just $1, trebled to $3 under antitrust law. The USFL ceased operations before what would have been its first fall season ever kicked off. Then came Vince McMahon's XFL in 2001. The first ever XFL game drew some 14 million viewers. It had spectacle. It had marketing muscle from the WWE empire. And ratings quickly bottomed out, and the league folded after just one season. The Alliance of American Football launched in 2019 and folded mid-season. McMahon revived the XFL in 2020, and it was cut short by the COVID-19 pandemic. Before it could build real traction, the first UFL, a different entity from today's version, planned to strike during the NFL lockout in 2011 and decided to go head-to-head with the NFL on a fall schedule. The NFL resolved its labor dispute in the summer, and the UFL limped along before folding in 2013. The modern USFL returned in 2022. The USFL's opening game drew 3.07 million viewers on NBC and Fox. By week 2, ratings plummeted by 57%, with none of the 5 games cracking 1 million viewers. Then the XFL came back again in 2023, bought by a consortium that included Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Danny Garcia. And eventually, the USFL and XFL merged in late 2023 to form the current United Football League. The UFL still exists. As of its 2026 season, 8 teams compete in the United Football League under a franchise model. It plays in the spring to avoid direct competition with the NFL. It has television deals with Fox and ESPN, but it operates on a fundamentally different financial plane. It is not a rival league so much as a developmental league that fills a calendar gap. Every single league that has tried to directly challenge the NFL's monopoly on professional American football has failed. Everyone. Some failed spectacularly, some failed quietly, but they all share one thing in common. They underestimated just how deeply the NFL's dominance is entrenched in American sports culture, media infrastructure, and financial systems. So when someone says that top NFL stars are putting together a billion-dollar rival league, history demands that you pay very close attention to the details. Let's talk about what $1 billion actually means in the context of professional football, because the figure itself is both enormous and, in the NFL's shadow, almost comically small. The NFL's total payroll across all 32 teams is approximately $9 billion per year. The league's media deals alone pump roughly $10 billion annually into the system. Individual franchise values now regularly exceed $5 billion, with the Dallas Cowboys reportedly valued north of $10 billion, and generating over $1.2 billion in annual revenue by themselves. Even mid-tier franchises are posting valuations that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. The Chicago Bears sit at $8.2 billion, and the Tennessee Titans saw a 29% increase in their valuation in a single year, partly because they announced a new stadium project. It might fund initial operations, pay player salaries for a season or two, secure a handful of stadiums, and finance a marketing blitz. But it does not build the kind of infrastructure that sustains a league year after year after year. That requires television contracts, merchandise licensing, stadium deals, sponsorship networks, and a viewer base that tunes in week after week. None of that materializes overnight. The original USFL had real ownership wealth. It had real talent. The league lost $163 million in 3 years, and that was in 1980s dollars. Adjusted for inflation, you're looking at losses approaching $400 million. And those losses came with the benefit of spring scheduling, where there was minimal competition for viewers. Now consider the financial architecture of today's NFL. 8 quarterbacks now earn $50 million or more annually. Dak Prescott's $60 million average annual value leads the league. Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence sit at approximately $55 million each. Lamar Jackson earns $52 million, fully guaranteed. The salary cap for 2026 is $255.4 million per team, but projections suggest the cap could reach approximately $280 million by 2028 and $310 million or more by 2030. Any rival league attempting to lure top NFL talent would need to either match or exceed these astronomical salaries. A quarterback earning $55 million a year is not leaving the NFL for a startup league, unless that startup can guarantee even more money, more stability, and more exposure. And even then, the risk calculus is staggering. Players who leave the NFL forfeit their negotiating leverage within the league's ecosystem, their endorsement visibility tied to the NFL's media machine, and their standing within the sport's established hierarchy. The financial moat surrounding the NFL is not just wide, it is deep and filled with contractual, legal, and structural defenses that no rival has successfully breached in the modern era. The NFL's $113 billion media rights deal essentially locks in the league's financial dominance through 2033. Any new league would need to secure its own TV contracts in a media landscape that has already committed its biggest checks to the existing NFL product. That is the paradox at the heart of a player-led rival league. The very players whose talent would make such a league viable are also the players who stand to lose the most by leaving the system that currently pays them more money than any other professional sports league on earth. If there is one factor that could genuinely push top NFL players toward drastic action, it is the collective bargaining agreement. The current CBA, ratified in 2020, represents a deeply complicated relationship between 32 billionaire owners and roughly 1,700 players. The CBA classifies distribution of league revenues, sets health and safety standards, and establishes benefits, including pensions and medical benefits, for all players in the NFL. The currently active agreement was ratified in 2020 and extends through the 2030 season. It includes changes to revenue distribution, increases in player benefits and health and safety improvements, expanding the regular season to 17 games, and increasing active roster and practice squad limits. But the agreement was controversial from the moment it was signed. The vote among players was extraordinarily close, and many prominent stars publicly opposed it. The deal locked players into a revenue split and game schedule for an entire decade, and the ramifications of that locked-in structure are now becoming painfully apparent as the league's revenue explodes past every projection. The 2011 lockout, lasting 119 days, was a direct result of disagreements over revenue sharing and player benefits. During those 2011 negotiations, owners asked the players to sacrifice $1 billion of their earnings off the top to help fund investments in new stadiums and bolster small market teams. But the NFL refused to share the full set of financial statements the association demanded. That impasse nearly killed an entire season. And there's a pattern here that goes back decades. In 1982, after playing the first 2 games of the season, NFL players went on strike, seeking a guaranteed percentage of club and league revenues. That strike lasted 57 days, making it the longest work stoppage in NFL history at that date. The tension between players and owners has been a constant undercurrent in the league's history. The specifics change, but the core dispute remains the same. How much of the pie do the people who play the game deserve? What makes the current moment particularly volatile is the sheer magnitude of the money involved. The NFL structures its cap as a form of revenue share with the players negotiated through the CBA. Another key part of the NFL cap system is the salary floor, which requires teams to spend at least 89% of the salary cap. But the floor doesn't change the fundamental asymmetry. Owners keep the larger share and retain enormous leverage over how the business is structured. Meanwhile, players see franchise values climbing by 20 to 30% in a single year. They see stadium deals worth $10 billion. They see ESPN acquiring NFL Network and the Red Zone brand in exchange for a 10% equity stake in ESPN itself. And they know that their bodies are the engine driving all of it. The collective bargaining agreement between the NFL and NFL Referees Association expires on May 31st, 2026, which adds another layer of labor complexity to an already tense environment. If the league cannot even maintain stable labor relations with its officials, the broader player-owner dynamic becomes all the more precarious. So when former players like Shawn Merriman take to national platforms to argue that the current split is inadequate, they are not shouting into an empty room. They are giving voice to a frustration that has been building pressure for years. And the question that nobody in the NFL's front offices wants to confront is this: what happens if that frustration finally reaches a boiling point? Now we arrive at the question that the title demands we answer. Could top NFL stars actually launch a rival league? Let's put all the pieces on the table. The player frustration is real. The revenue disparity is documented. The historical precedent for labor disputes in the NFL is long and contentious. There are billionaire investors outside of football looking for new sports ventures. The infrastructure for spring football already exists through the UFL, and a generation of players who have grown up in the social media era understand the power of their personal brands in a way that no previous generation of athletes has. But here's what also needs to be placed on that same table. The UFL, the most recent attempt at an alternative football league, has 8 teams competing under a franchise model. It was born from the merger of the XFL and USFL, 2 leagues that couldn't survive on their own, even with partners like Dwayne Johnson, Fox Sports, and ESPN backing it. Even with experienced football operations people running it, overall television ratings and attendance went down in most markets, prompting firings of sales directors and business executives in underperforming cities. The league is surviving, but it is not thriving. And that league is not even trying to compete with the NFL head-to-head. The original USFL's shift to a fall schedule destroyed it. The XFL folded after 1 season in 2001. The AAF didn't make it through a single year. The UFL, the earlier version, folded in 2013 after trying to capitalize on the NFL lockout. The structural advantages the NFL holds are nearly insurmountable. The league's 11-year media deals with CBS, Fox, NBC, ESPN, and Amazon lock up the biggest broadcasting windows in American TV. The 2026 regular season begins on September 9th, 2026, and ends on January 10th, 2027, with the playoffs concluding at Super Bowl LXI on February 14th at SoFi Stadium. That timeline dominates the American sports calendar from late summer through winter, against the most watched programming in the country. And then there's the matter of player contracts. Current NFL players are bound by legally enforceable agreements. They cannot simply walk away and join a rival league without facing litigation, loss of guaranteed money, and potential career-ending consequences. The NFL's antitrust exemptions and contractual framework create a legal fortress that would take years of litigation to challenge. What about the claim of a $1 billion deal? As of right now, there is no verified, public confirmation from any credible journalistic source that a group of top NFL stars has signed a $1 billion agreement to launch a rival league. The conversation about player dissatisfaction is real. The economic arguments for a better deal are legitimate. Former players are speaking out. Current players are frustrated. But the leap from frustration to a signed billion-dollar deal is enormous. What is far more likely is this: the growing public conversation about revenue inequality, the approaching 2030 CBA expiration, and the increasing willingness of star players to use their platforms to advocate for change are all converging into a pressure campaign. In 1989, the NFLPA decertified as a union, stating its union status provided more protection for the owners than for the players. That drastic move ultimately led to landmark legal victories and a new CBA that introduced true free agency for the first time. The threat of a rival league is, in many ways, more powerful than an actual rival league. It forces owners to negotiate. It shifts the public narrative. It gives players leverage without requiring them to actually risk their careers and their earnings on an unproven venture. Could it happen? The talent exists. The frustration exists. The money somewhere exists. But the weight of history, the strength of the NFL's legal and financial position, and the practical reality of what it takes to sustain a professional football league all suggest that the real battle will be fought not on a rival league's gridiron, but at the negotiating table when the current CBA comes up for renewal in 2030. That negotiation is going to be the bloodiest fight in the history of professional football labor relations. And the idea of a rival league, whether it materializes or not, is one of the most potent weapons the players will carry into that room.